Hello everyone. I just got done watching a YouTube video and I watched a segment with Rich Holdner, and he has a cam on there that he thought was pretty good, and it jumped up in power when he tested it. But one thing he said on there that I didn't think was good to pass on to public people that might not know any different is that you can use a stock spring with this camshaft they have out. Now, you might be able to use a stock spring if it's new, but what about putting a cam in with a spring that's already got 200,000 miles on it, and you're just shoving that cam in there? And you'll say, yeah, Terry, I watched that video. That thing jumped up in power, and it worked. Well, I got a question for you. How long do you think that would work? How long do you think a more aggressive cam would last before it started beating them springs up? And then you have to change the springs anyway. And then take the heads off or use air in the cylinder, and you'll be doing the springs later on down the road. Guys, we all want instant horsepower and to take the cheap way out. But when you cheap out on the valve train, you can't usually get away with that. For somebody to kind of almost push that initiative, that's something that shouldn't be done. I would love to get away with putting a cam in something and not upgrading anything. That's our dream. Unfortunately, that dream will turn into a nightmare later on. You're either going to lose power, and you'll say, well, I did it before. I didn't lose any power. Well, it's because you didn't make the power that it could make in the first place then, in most cases. That's my opinion about that. I usually don't say a whole lot about things like this, and I try not to put people in the middle, but being as it came from his show, and he's willing to put it out there and pass that information on, then I'm just the other side of the coin. I'm just a guy in the garage, like you guys are, and no big company, no big backing, nothing like that. You guys that follow me know that. I'm as simple as they get, and I'm simple-minded too. But I do have enough common sense to know not to do them things. And I don't want to see somebody that might not know performance watch a segment on something like that and say, well, Rich Holdner test, he threw that cam in there with the stock springs, and it made big power. A lot of times we can make big power, and if the rest of the engine is not up to par, then it's not going to be good in the long run. Now, you guys know me that follow my channel. I do stuff, and my son, our engines have a lot of miles on them, and we use stock parts. But we do also upgrade valve springs and the important things where it has to be upgraded. If we tried putting a bigger cam in on a stock E7 headed vehicle, that thing would not run very long before it would have a significant loss in power. It would either be floating the valves out, and that's one thing you don't want to do. Now, here's what I will say about the LS engines. Usually the camshafts have more lift and they're more aggressive on the duration. So just imagine this. We're going to put a cam into an engine with stock springs, but the springs are new where they're holding control of the valve. Okay, and it has enough to be stable. That's fine, because the cam's not that aggressive. But if you do a camshaft on a spring that isn't able to control that valve, is that worth a set of springs not controlling that valve, and now you have a piston slam into your valve and blow your engine up? and waste the head, and now you have a bucket full of metal that's absolutely worthless. Guys, if you're going to do anything performance-wise, you need to upgrade the springs. Even if you're running a low-profile cam. I don't like when I see things like this, and believe me, I'm a budget guy. I have guys that don't like the way I do stuff because I push the envelope with things. Something like that. I'm so upset about this. I was trying to think how to do this video without sarcasm and being harsh. Because I worry about hard-working guys trying to go faster, and they just say, hey, man, I can afford a camshaft, but I can't afford the springs and all the other stuff. You can't afford not to. That's my opinion. So this is just Terry's thinking. All I try to do is look after the little guy because I am the little guy. I know how hard it is for one little thing to be changed on an engine. And some guys don't have the funds. Some guys have to save up and save up and save up just to buy a camshaft. And now you're hearing this guy say, oh wow, I can get away without putting springs on the heads. Well, I'm telling you, don't do it, fellas. If you want to buy brand new springs and call the manufacturer up and say, can this really get away with stock springs and be dependable, be reliable, and will it last? Then that's different. Don't put a cam in something that has springs that have been beat up. It's not just the mileage. Think about how many heat cycles them springs have been through in 100,000 miles. So that's just how I see it, guys. I'm not trying to take away from anybody else's way of thinking. I'm just trying to give you my way of thinking. And in this case, I think what I say is right. And I don't want to see somebody make a mistake and say, hey, I'm going to grab that camshaft. That's what they do. The minute people see 75 horsepower increase just by slipping a cam in, and now you don't need valve springs. Well, if you don't want to listen to what I'm saying, that's fine. And you might get lucky. And you might say, well, even if it lasts a month, or even if I get a few passes down the track, if you want to go through all that trouble and take a chance on wasting the engine, that's fine. I'm just trying to look out for the persons that don't want to take a chance and may not know the difference not to do that. So that's what I look after. I look after the guys that might not know, not you fellas that do, because you fellas that do can make up your own mind, especially if you race. You know what you can get away with, what you can't get away with most of the time anyway. You don't need me telling you. So anyway, that's my thinking on it, guys. I guess I do this little video, and that's where I'm going to leave it, guys. So just think about when you do performance work, if you're doing the right thing. And like I said, my opinion is that would be the wrong thing to do in this case. Anyway, have a good night, everybody. God bless you, and thank you for taking time to watch my video. I appreciate it. See ya.